The Navajo Nation has a long history of rich culture deriving from the Navajo traditional oral stories handed down from generation to generation. Recently, smoke-free policies to prohibit commercial tobacco secondhand smoke in public places have been proposed within the Navajo Nation. Researchers from the Networks Among Tribal Organizations for Clean Air Policy Project wanted to explore and understand the history, role, and influences of commercial tobacco and secondhand smoke within the Navajo culture, specifically within the Navajo ceremonial settings.
Today, many tribal nations throughout Indian country maintain a strong spiritual connection to traditional tobacco, and they fully exercise their right to use it in accordance with their traditional religious beliefs. When we discuss the topic of traditional tobacco and its use in ceremonial settings today, it is important to recognize how history has shaped current behaviors surrounding tobacco use.
When the Indian Removal Act was passed in 1830, Native people were forced from their homelands to accommodate the expansion of white settlers into the West. Communities were disconnected from their traditional lands, and this really impacted ceremonial life and practices, which included traditional tobacco use.
The Indian Religious Crimes Code in 1883 further suppressed the expression of Native religious beliefs when it restricted Native people from performing their dances, ceremonies, songs, and prayers. Use of ceremonial items such as traditional tobacco were also prohibited.
As more and more settlers colonized the West during the 19th and the 20th centuries, they introduced many foreign ideas and items into tribal communities. Among them was commercial tobacco. While native ways were suppressed, the Anglo-American lifestyle was enforced. As time went on, tribes began substituting or mixing traditional tobacco with commercial tobacco in their cultural events and ceremonial settings, which were often held in secret.
In 1978, the American Indian Religious Freedom Act was finally passed, and federal agencies could no longer interfere in a Native person's right to exercise their religious beliefs. This law was strengthened in 1994.
As we look back on the history of American Indians and ceremonial tobacco use, we begin to see how policies and colonization played into the picture of tobacco use and practices that we see today on the Navajo Nation.
To further understand the history, role, and influences of commercial tobacco within ceremonial settings, researchers from the Networks Among Tribal Organizations for Clean Air Policies Project interviewed Navajo healers from two distinct healing organizations on the Navajo Nation. First is the traditional Diné healing way, known as Hatral. In Hatral, healers are known as Hatralis and engage healing for their patients through elaborate songs, medicinal herbs, including nat'o, sand painting, and other diagnostic methods. The second is the peyote-based healing way, commonly known as the Native American Church, or NAC. The Native American Church ceremony was formed by intertribal cultures in the late 1800s. Healers who conduct NAC ceremonies are known as Azeye Nahatlahe or roadmen. Both the Hatral and the NAC ceremonies involve the use of nat'o in their healing practices. The purpose of this video series is to share the knowledge and wisdom of this small group of healers with the Navajo people, health communities, tribal nations, policymakers, and education programs to increase the awareness of secondhand smoke and commercial tobacco from a Navajo perspective.
Katzla Oti Yelgay, Banetze Kesle Gala Yoteze Yelgay, Banetze Kesle Yaze Lanet Awagay, Banetze Kesle Yagasa Anagay.